All right, in this video, we're going to explain the 4 problems that were put before you to study for the test. In this very first problem, we're asked to write a for loop. And when we write this for loop, first we want to see the pattern in our numbers, and clearly they go up by 2 each time. So with a for loop, oops, if I can write here, there we go. With a for loop, we're starting with the number 5. So it makes sense to have some incrementer. I'm going to use the letter K and start it at 5. And I'm going to keep going until I reach the number 19. So it makes sense to keep going while this number is less than or equal to 19. And I can see that I go up by 2 every time. So it makes sense to increase K by 2 each time. And then all I need in here is to print system.out.print K. And I guess there's a comma here, so we can also put in comma. I'm not going to worry about the fact that there wasn't a comma at the end. Really what I'm going for here is that you've got the idea of how to do a for loop, that this is your initial term, this is the condition that's going to break you out of the loop, and this is how much your term is going up by each time. This is not the only way to do this problem, but it's probably the simplest way. All right, let's look at number 2. In this case, we've been given code and we're asked to find the output. So we do this by tracing it, and I'm going to start off with that first variable called y, and I can see its initial value is 0. So I'm right here. A do loop does what's inside here before checking anything. So the first thing, I'm right here, y plus plus, so y becomes 1. Now I go down to this line, and I'm going to print out y divided by 4. Now this is int division, so 1 divided by 4 equals 0. So let me just put my output on a separate space here. So this is going to be my output box right here. And so it says I'm going to print that, so I print 0. And the next step says I do y plus equals 2. So y is now 3. I check down here to see if y is less than 10, which it is, so I do this again. Y increments to 4. I print out 4 divided by 4, which is 1. So that's going to be my output. And now I add 2 onto y, so y is now 6. I can see that 6 is less than 10, so I do it again. Y goes up to 7. I'm going to do 7 divided by 4. Well, 4 goes into 7 exactly 1 time, so in int division, I'm going to print 1. And I add 2. So I'm at 9. 9 is less than 10, so I go back in, and I increment to 10. I'm going to print 10 divided by 4. 4 goes into 10 2 times. So I print 2, I increment it by 10, and now 12 is greater than 10. I break out of my loop, and I am done. So these are all the values of y, but what got printed was this output, 0, 1, 1, 2. Now this next problem has to do with taking a for loop and rewriting it as a while loop, but first we're going to actually just trace this. So let's start with this one. We have a value called sum, and sum starts out as 12. We have another value called k, so let's keep track of k, and k starts with the value of 10 right here. I'm going to do this while k is greater than 0, which it is right now. And the first thing I do is I add k onto sum. All right, so I add 10 onto 12, and sum becomes 22. And after I do that, I do k minus equals 3, so k is now 7. 7 is greater than 0, so I do this again. I add 7 onto 22, which gives me 29, and k goes down by 3, and I'm at 4. 4 is still greater than 0, so I add 4 onto 29, which gives me 33, and this goes down by 3. Oops, not to 3, but goes down by 3. Let's try an eraser here, if I can get my hands on an eraser. All right, having a little problem with my smartboard here. Okay, well, we'll just cross it out since it doesn't want me to use the eraser function. So 4 minus 3 is 1. There we go. So now 1 is greater than 0, so I do it again. I add 1 onto 33. That gives me 34, and then I subtract 3. I'm at negative 2. Finally, k is a number that is not greater than 0. I break out of my loop, and this is the first time I've been at the system.out.print line, and so my output is only that last number sum, 34. So there's my output, 34. Okay, so that's the first part of this. The second part asked me to rewrite the code fragment using a while loop. So I'm going to rewrite this entire code fragment here using my while loop. So here we go. The first line stays the same, int sum equals 12, exactly as before. Now this int k equals 10 was the very first thing, and it's actually something initialized before I'm looping. So I'm going to write that before my while loop. Now my while loop comes in next. I'm going to do this while k is greater than 0. Then I do the work inside the while loop, sum plus equals k. And the last thing I do in my while loop is this, where I change the value of k. So k minus equals 3. That has to be the last step because of my for loop. That was the last thing I did each time. I close that, and then the last after the loop is to print. So system.out.println sum. And this while loop will do the exact same thing as the for loop. All right, in this last one, we're asked to take this nested if-else and change it to a switch statement. So here we go, switch. We have to think, well, what variable is causing me to switch? And I'm switching on what the value of result is. I can see I'm using result in all these places. So I'm going to switch based on what result equals. So switch result, curly brackets, and I have case. Now my cases are these. I have case 1, case 2, and then every other case. So if my case is 1, what I do is num++. And I also break out of it. I don't do all the other steps. If my case is 2, in other words, if result equals 2, then I do num minus minus, and then I break out. And any other case is my default case. That's my else statement. And in that case, num equals 0. And again, I can put in a break statement, though this break statement is technically not necessary. All right, that's it.